Welcome to the Flock and Hive podcast, a place for curious minds to explore all that makes life so weird and wonderful. And this week,
Drone bees don't sting because their whole abdomen is their reproductive organ, so there's no room for a stinger. So they're big, lovely, dopey, dumpy things. And so when I do my education with the kids, I say, hold a drone bee, and it just sits in their hand.
We speak to James Wheeldon from the charity Beekeeping for Hope.
hello, welcome back.
Hello.
So finally, Flock and Hive gets a bee one.
Yes, this is the reason you made it, for the Hive reference.
Finally. But I love this conversation with James. It was packed full of stuff that I've always wanted to know, and hopefully you did as well.
Well, I didn't even know half of it. I didn't even know most of it. I knew we had to save the bees and the general reason behind it. But yeah, definitely keep listening because it gets very entertaining, actually. They could literally make a movie out of what bees get up to. It's that entertaining.
Totally. But, it's stuff that we all kind of really should know. Like, where do queen bees come from? Why do bees swarm? What about the hierarchy of bees? How do you catch a swarm? Terrifying. And of course, Asian bastard hornets and bee sting therapy. So interesting.
And he's quite recent with all this, isn't it? He got into it during lockdown, which I love because loads of other people were getting other hobbies like sourdough. But he's opted for one that can potentially save the world. So love that.
Yeah, slightly more useful than what my hobbies during lockdown. I mean, you just created a human, hadn't you?
That's the best, most productive type of hobby.
Yeah.
But then actually the hobby that followed was breastfeeding whilst homeschooling 2 kids. So that was a shit hobby.
Wasn't as bad as mine, which is essentially day drinking, because I used to go out to wine tastings, but then in COVID, all the wine tastings and spirits tastings and liqueur tastings came to me.
Oh, God. I think most people turn to day drinking, but they're literally turning up on your door. But you were very kind, weren't you? You handed it out and left it on people's doorsteps. You became the purveyor of alcoholism in Dulwich.
Oh, it was great though. I got honey back, funnily enough. I got rhubarb back. I got lemon tarts back. Yeah, it was like a currency. And I never ran out because I had about 100 bottles turn up at my door a week. And I'm not kidding. Insane. So I'm going to introduce our word of the week right now. And I'm going to do it in this voice. Does that make you want to guess what the word might be? What a
Um,
crap hint, but have a go.
slightly high.
No, my voice is mellifluous. Mellifluous. Such a beautiful word, and I don't use it enough. So it's an adjective used to describe something that is sweet or musical, pleasant to hear. Often refers to sounds, people's voices, whether they're singing or they're talking, but it gives a sense of sweetness or honey-like quality. For example, the mellifluous tones of the violin filled the room, or he spoke in a mellifluous manner, making even mundane topics sound interesting.
Fun, isn't it? Because it sounds very close to Maleficent, which is the absolute opposite of that, isn't it?
It does sound like that, but it's mel, melli, which actually comes from the Latin word mel, meaning honey, and fluere, by the way, which means to flow.
Oh, right. So, yes, Mel versus Mal, which is obviously bad.
Yeah.
The thing with honey, there's just nothing negative about honey and anything associated with it. I mean, it's a term of endearment to someone, isn't it? Like honey, honey bun. Even brands like, do you know Love Honey, the sex toy brand?
I have aware of its existence.
um, it's just always used as something really positive and sweet and endearing.
Mm.
So sweet sounding voices. Barry White is classically the walrus of love, isn't he? And he's supposed to have that voice that absolutely everyone loves.
Chocolate voice. Yeah, that is a great example of a mellifluent voice, you might say.
But then having said that, for some reason his songs give me rage.
Do they? Which ones in particular?
Just hang on in there, baby. Hang on in there, darling. It's just a bit gross and pervy, actually. And like unsolicited sex pheromones shoved at me. Thank you. Don't want to.
Well, a lot of songs like that. I mean, don't get me started on Andy Williams, who I used to love, but now is so wrong in today's context. The girls watch the girls go by. Music to watch girls by. Perv.
The worst one is, "Girl, I'm gonna make you sweat. Sweat till you can't sweat no more," and basically goes on to say, "And if you cry out, I'm gonna push it some more,"
Oh yeah,
which could be positive, but sounds just a bit wrong.
it does sound a bit wrong. Gosh, that's a tangent from bees, isn't it?
Yes. So moving on from pervy song lyrics from our childhood, I actually think this is an absolute education, this interview with him. Just really interesting, just knowing what bees get up to and the intricacies. It's kind of reminds me a bit of the mushroom conversation we had with Alex about all this underlying stuff that's going on in nature that's so important that we just don't know about. I just think it's really exciting to think of all the deeper levels of what is sustaining our lives, basically.
Mm. And you'll look at bees in a completely different way afterwards, I guarantee. I certainly do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, spoiler alert, some of them are bastards.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, I think we should hear from James, don't you? So here is what James Wheeldon had to say about the bees. James, it's brilliant to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. So let's dive straight into the bee chat. What I want to know is, what was it about bees that made you want to work with them? Tell us that, and briefly what it is that you do now.
So I've been big on insects, bugs, ants mainly for years and years and years. Then all of a sudden, lockdowns happened, and I wanted to learn a skill because I'm a forager. I go and look out for lemon balms, dandelions, make our own food from it, our own teas, and it kind of led me down ants, pollen, plants, bees. So last May, caught a swarm, or had a swarm delivered to me from a local association. And from there, it's just blown up big time. And I wanted to stand out from other beekeepers because there's loads out there on how to do this, how to do that. And I was like, how am I going to stand out from them? And I do a lot for charity with a charity called Hope For, based in Moldova. So I wanted to kind of link beekeeping and charity. So I started to get a particular hive and dedicate that whole hive to a charity. So all the produce I get from that hive, all the honey, wax and bits and bobs, I just sell it. The profit I make goes to that charity. And today I've got 8 colonies now for 8 causes. So orphanage in Uganda, Hopeful in Ukraine, Moldova, and the local community. And the other colonies are ones what are building up to, they're too small at the moment. So, but it's all getting there.
That is fantastic. And I can sort of see why bees and charity work go hand in hand. The kind of people who are passionate about bees would be passionate about other areas of charity. And you've been going for not a huge amount of time, actually. And yet your following on Instagram, particularly, is massive and it's really engaged. Why do you think that is? Why are people so into bees nowadays?
To be honest, I'm not too sure really. I think it's because people are realising that with the food you buy in the shops, you're not necessarily getting a raw 100% organic product. So with bees and honey being as lovely as it is and delicious and helpful for our bodies as it is, people wanting to do their own thing to make some really nice, delicious raw honey. And of course, you can get wax from a hive as well for candle making. So there's a lot what comes from a beehive. I say propolis as well and bits and bobs.
Yeah, because it's not just honey, isn't it? So, what is propolis and and royal jelly? Are these things that humans can use?
Yeah, so propolis is really high in antibacterial, and you can use it as antibiotic as well. So propolis is basically just a forager bee goes out on her forage and she finds some tree sap, and she uses it as bee glue. She mixes it with her juices in her body, pollen as well, and they make this glue to seal up the hive. And it's quite difficult I find it difficult to harvest. There's probably people out there who can do it. But when I scrape it off, I normally get bits of wood in it, bee legs, stuff like that. So there's lots of benefits. And of course, wax as well. You can, my wife makes lip balms with our wax and of course, candle making.
So, you mentioned forager bees. Now, apparently, there's a whole hierarchy in a hive, from the queen to the drone. I've heard you talk about undertakers, etc. Can you tell us about the hierarchies of bees in a hive and how do they get their roles decided, and do those roles change over time?
So, as you know, in a colony of bees, you've got worker bees, all girls. You've got one queen. Sometimes there's a daughter in there, a younger queen, but it depends really. I've had a hive with 2 queens in it. But over time, the younger one will overthrow the old one. And you get your drone bees as well, your boy bees. But as you grow as a bee, you hatch out of your little cell and you come out as a newborn bee. The first job is to clean your cell out so the queen can lay a new egg in there. As you get older, you go through the ranks. So when you're a young baby bee, you have no wing muscles. Your wings just sit behind your back, so you can't fly. You literally can't do any flying jobs. So you go around the colony feeding the grubs, feeding the workers. Some become attendant bees to look after the queen. So they circle the queen, they clean her, they make sure she's laying correctly, they make sure she's a strong queen. Because if not, they get rid of her. But it's basically, as you get older as a bee, your jobs become more, I'll say, dangerous in a way. So as your wing muscles develop and you can fly, you'll start to become an undertaker bee, where you'll find the dead bodies in the hive, because the bees do die in the hive. So they take them out and put them far away. You become a guard bee. You can sit on the front of the entrance and guard, and then become a forager bee. But it's all, I can't work out, or I don't think anyone has really, why and how they get these jobs. Like you've got pheromone bees as well, that sit on the entrance and fan their wings to tell other bees where the entrance is. You get scout bees who will go out and find a suitable habitat if they wanted to leave the hive for whatever reason, to go somewhere else to swarm, and they leave a lemon scent. That's why when I take kids into the hives, I say don't eat any lemons, because if they've got a lemon scent on their mouth or on their fingers, the bees are like, someone's marked you, so you're an interesting spot sort of thing. Same bananas. Don't eat bananas around a hive, because the guard bees, when they're on your veil or over your head, they'll sit here and they'll buzz angrily, and you can smell banana, and that's how they mark their attacker. So everyone else knows there's someone around. So I say to kids, no bananas, no lemons.
I mean, talk about stuff you never knew. That's extraordinary. So, I mean, you talked about pheromones there as well, and this lemon scent. I've heard about waggle dancing as well. Do you know? Can you tell me more about other ways that bees communicate?
So they mainly communicate through, say, waggle dances. Through they find a good flower, or the scout bee finds a good spot. She'll come back and she'll do a figure of 8, vibrating all the way as she goes. And it's meant to be in position to the sun. So, because bees navigate by the sun. So they plan where this area is through the sun, through their dance, which I find incredible. I don't know how they work out how they do this. And of course, pheromone, they, as in to mark places, like, as I said, to mark an entrance, say they find an old bird box to take the swarm, then they'll mark that, and the queen, and they'll take her there to the bird box. Well, there is another one. So the queen herself releases a pheromone. If you've got nice, calm, chilled bees, you've got a nice, calm, chilled queen. So her pheromone will go around. If she's a really skitty, angry, not too nice queen, all her bees are skitty, angry, not very nice. But the queen doesn't actually rule over the hive. It's the worker bees, which basically, as a hive mind, run the hive. So if she's not performing very well, she's out, they'll boil her, they'll replace her, they'll kill her, or she escapes, or whatever.
It does sound brutal. I mean, these are amazing creatures, but they don't take any shit, do they?
No, totally, yeah.
Now, something that's always fascinated me is queen bees, because I've seen from your Instagram as well that you can buy them and you introduce them to a hive, and I think you mark them as well in different colours, don't you? So they're easier to see.
That's right.
So how does a queen come about, and is she born a queen, and how do you get one?
So you can buy them from places. I've got one coming actually on Thursday from a company they sent me my queen called Tattoo, because she's got a little tattoo on her back of their logo. So they're sending me another one because one of my queens got boiled and they're queenless. They killed her queen, so I need a new one basically.
How did they boil the queen?
If for whatever reason they don't like her, or she's failing, or she's not laying properly, they just all clamber on top of her, pin her down. They bite at her wings, her legs, her antennae, and they vibrate their bodies, and they become warm, and they overheat the queen, and then she just dies. And then the undertaker bee will take her out.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that. So sorry. So back to the queen bees. You were saying. So
Yeah.
you got
So
tested.
you can actually get a little boxes. You put the queen in. You seal the box up with baker's fondant, so the queen can release her pheromone around the colony who needs a new queen, and her pheromone should get accepted, and they'll think that's their queen. So give it 2 or 3 days. She's in this box. Then you can let her out and just hope they've accepted her. All the attendant bees will start helping her. But if you wanted to get a queen without buying one from a breeder, you can do it yourself. But if you let the bees do it, they'll take a worker bee egg and they'll put a worker bee egg into a cell, and they'll make a cup, like a cup shape, like a mug, and they'll feed that egg when it hatches into a larva constantly royal jelly, which is a secretion from the nurse bees. So the nurse bees can give out royal jelly. They just feed that grub royal jelly for its whole life, and it becomes a big like finger sticking off the little frames you get with the bees on. A big finger sticks out. It's called a queen cell. So inside there's your queen. If the old queen's in the hive and she feels a bit threatened by this queen cell, she'll come over and destroy it. If this queen hatches, the old queen will fly off. She'll swarm. She'll take the colony with her, leave the colony who can't fly with the queen, the new queen. So there's a lot of variations, because if there's lots of cells everywhere, one hatches first, that queen will go around and destroy all the other ones, sting them all. She'll bite a hole in them, sting the embryo and the grub inside, sort of thing.
It's amazing that humans see all this happening, because there are lots of bees in a hive, and even trying to pick out a queen must be hard enough.
Yeah, so we mark the queens every year in the entire world. It's a one color. So like in 2022, it was, what color was it? Yellow. So I've got one yellow queen left called Phoenix. She's not doing too good, so she's in our bee retirement home at the moment. But they're trying to replace her actually with a queen cell. There's a queen cell in there. And then last year it was red, marking on the queen's back, and then this year it was green. So if you do find a swarm, you catch a queen you don't know, you see she's got a red dot on her back, you know she was born in 2024. That's why we mark them.
So I want to talk about swarming, but also finding a swarm. Let's come back to finding a swarm. But first of all, to an outsider, swarming bees and the sound of swarming bees is absolutely terrifying. But so why do they swarm, and how do you deal with that? How do you catch one?
Yeah. So I caught my own last year. So what I did was, I got an empty beehive with some old frames in there, frames of the wax they've drawn out. So old bees have used it. So it still smells like bees. I put some lemon scent on the front, so to trick the bees that it's been marked by a scout bee. And I just left it on the fields, just outside. A few weeks later, I caught a swarm. There's a load of bees in there. But the reason they do swarm, there's a few reasons. One can be because the old home has become so packed with bees, the queen can't lay any eggs anywhere, they can't put any honey anywhere. So they decide, as a big hive mind, that it's time for the queen to go, and she takes all the bees she can fly with her. So she goes off and she'll sit in a tree and just wait for her scout bees to find a nice home for her. Once back in the hive, they should have some of her eggs left, and they'll start to raise then a new queen. When you come across a swarm, it can be quite daunting because the bees are flying everywhere. The noise, like you said, is quite loud. But they're not there to attack. They're just there to rest, to find somewhere else to go.
Okay, and physically putting them into a new hive or a container. I've seen people do that,
Yeah.
just like scooping them with their hands. You need to be a special kind of person to be able to do that now, because you don't want to show fear, right?
No, that's right. It's all just slow, sort of calm movements. I tend to concentrate when I do stuff like this on the task I've got to do. If I was concentrating on the bees all buzzing around me and getting a bit feisty in my hand, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I just focus on what I've got to do, get the bees from this tree into this box. Some of them are easy. I had a swarm last week. One of my queens' wing was damaged, so she couldn't fly. So she literally fell out of the nest. They all followed her and they clumped under a chair. So I just picked up the chair, a gentle tap, and they all fell in the box, put the lid on, and let the flying bees come in as well. And that was that, really.
So they're not there to attack. That's good to know. But do bees have personalities? I mean, are there genuinely some like friendly bees and some real bastard bees kind of thing?
Yeah, again, I can speak from experience recently again as well. I have a colony at one site. The bees are absolutely lovely. You lift up the boxes on top, none of them fly up. They just sit there. They don't really do a lot, pull the frames out. No one does anything. Accidentally squash a bee, one will come up and have a look because you can't help it. There's so many. It's so hard. It's like it's clear 1 second, put it down, and you hear a crunch. It depends on the queen as well, her pheromone going around. But bees do recognise faces. So I've got another site I go to help a lady with her bees. When I go in there, they're really calm with me. They seem to know that I'm gentle, I'm slow. The other guy goes in there, he's a bit clanky. He drops the frame so it makes a bang, the bees fly up. They hate him. He can't go anywhere near that hive now because they all attack his... He's in a suit, of course, but they all attack him. Whereas I can go there and they're fine. I get one or two buzzing around me, but they definitely can recognise face and your smell, your pheromone as well.
Okay, so are there any myths about bees that you would like to debunk?
With honeybees, that not all bees sting, I guess. So you've got your worker bees. Of course, they do sting, they can sting, and it does tear out their abdomen and they bleed to death. Drone bees don't sting because their whole abdomen is their reproductive organ. So there's no room for a stinger. So they're big, lovely, dopey, dumpy things. And so when I do my education with the kids, the drone bee just makes them confident bees. I say, hold a drone bee, and it just sits in their hand, big, fat, round thing, big eyes. The queen bee herself, she can sting. It's mainly the virgin queens because their abdomens aren't swollen with eggs. So they can sting, and they're like a wasp. Their sting is just smooth, so they can repeatedly sting. But as they get bigger, the abdomens get fatter, the sting can't come out because it's just too fat. So yeah, so the myth there is not all the bees in the colony will sting. It's mainly the guard bees, the forager bees, because the nurse bees don't want to sting. They're not aggressive really. They just want to sit on the frames and do their work. The guard bees, which they're trained to do, which they want to do, they'll protect their colony, so they will sting. Hopefully that's a myth buster.
Yeah, it is. It's a good one. So let's talk a bit about threats to bees. I've heard recently about something called colony collapse. I've also seen a heartbreaking video on social where someone is burning their beehives because of disease. And of course, there is the problem we have with Asian hornets. So, yeah, let's talk about those things, can we? Start with the colony collapse.
Yes, the colony collapse. Again, I haven't really experienced it because I'm quite new, but from what I hear from people and what I've researched is colony collapse can be, they don't know the one reason why it happens. It can be a number of things, like it could be chemicals used on the area they forage, or the main one is varroa mite, which is a mite which came over from Germany and it's gone everywhere. It travels from drone bees, so drone bees can go into any hive they want. So the drone bees where I live, they can go 2 miles up the road to the colony over there and they will transfer varroa mite. If the varroa mites become too much for the bees, then the colony will collapse as well. People can't pinpoint the one reason, so it's a number of reasons, I think, a number of factors, I guess environmental and like pests as well.
What does it look like, a colony collapse? Is it just, it's not physical, is it?
I know from some beekeepers that they go into their hive and it's like it's empty, or the entire bees, there's just a big pile of bees, thousands of bees dead at the bottom, with a few straggling and hanging on. So yeah, it's just a number of factors, I think.
But let's also talk about Asian hornets, because I mean, where I live on the Isle of Wight, we've got signs up everywhere about how to spot them and to tell people if they see them. Can you explain why?
So the Asian hornet, it came into Europe. I don't know how they know this, but this is the story. So it came into Europe on a jug from China. One queen came in and she left, of course, and she made her own colony. And it went through the entirety of Europe and it started to come over here. I think it started in 2017. They started coming over to Dover, Kent, that sort of area. I know quite a lot of people in the Isle of Wight who are really hot on the Asian hornet, so she'll be amazed that you've actually heard about it out there because she's got a massive campaign going on. So when the Asian hornet does attack a honeybee colony, the honeybees here don't know how to defend themselves against them. European hornets, which are native here, they're not as aggressive as the Asian hornets. So they will take a few bees, but that'll be it. Where the Asian hornet will just take them until they've all gone. So what they like to do is, at the entrance of your beehive, where all your bees are flying in and out with pollen, the Asian hornet will sit in front of the hive, hawking, hovering, catching the foraging bees as they fly in and out. The bees react by stopping all the flying bees, because they can, of course, if a queen comes out to mate, they can catch her as well, or drone bees going out to mate or going out to hang out with the other drone bees, which they do. They can get caught by the Asian hornet and killed as well. And then when the bees stop the flies, they start to beard on the front, which is bearding, like a man of big beard of bees. So the bees cover the front of the hive, they stop flying, and they become weaker. The longer it goes on the attacks, they become weaker because they've got no food coming in, they've got no water coming in. So as they get weaker, the Asian hornets can pick them off. And when they pick them off, they take the head off, the abdomen. They have the thorax, but they just want the wing muscles. The proteins in the wing muscles, that's all they take for their larvae. Because the larvae are the carnivores, whereas the Asian hornet is a pollinator. She'll eat sweet stuff like by honeybees. Yeah, they're a big threat, and they adapted to our climate pretty well. So there's a lot of them around. We had a sighting closest to us two is Southampton, and that was, I think, about 2 weeks ago. And that was a queen Asian hornet, and I think they destroyed her.
Gosh, so it is important, if you think you've seen one, to who should you get in touch with?
Yeah, so you get in touch with the NBU, the National Bee Unit. There's all these, if you type in Asian hornet on Google, for example, it'll all come up saying report a sighting. The best way to do it is, because I get sent a lot of emails, I've seen an Asian hornet, and they're always European hornets, which is good. It's good people are looking for them. So I don't mind saying, yeah, it's not an Asian hornet, which is good. But so the Latin name is Vespa velatino nitrathorax. And compared to the European hornet, the Asian hornet is black. So nitrathorax is dark thorax, black thorax. So that's how you know an Asian hornet, with the European hornets quite orangey, and they're bigger as well.
So if you think you see one, should you just leave it the hell alone?
I haven't got all of my traps for me, but there's lots of traps you can do. Isle of Wight's got a brilliant website for the Isle of Wight Beekeeping Association, and it's a massive bit about Asian hornets and how you can trap them, or how you can make up these little monitor stations so you can see them coming in, report them. You can't, I would love to catch one, put one of those marks on its back like a honeybee queen, watch it fly off, and then triangulate where it's gone. So when it comes back, you can time it to a rough idea of where it's gone, where the nest is, because you're only going to stop them if you find the nest. But by law, we can't, if you catch an Asian hornet, you can't let it back out because you're breaking the law, because it's an invasive species. So if you see one or catch one, report it, and someone will come out and come identify. But I think Portsmouth will be hit first before the Isle of Wight get it. So if we get it big time, you guys are next.
Yeah, it's not that far, is it? What else could people generally do to help support the honeybee population and the pollinators, the bees, the buzzy things that we really, really need?
I'll give my garden as an example. So I don't use any chemicals in my garden. I have daisies in my grass, I've got dandelions in my grass, I've got South Hill in my grass, plantain. But it's nice to have some natural forage for the bees. Plus, really important, somewhere they can drink as well, somewhere safe. If you do a big bowl of water, they're going to slip in and drown. So like a shallow plate of water with lots of pebbles in it, so the bees can sit on the pebbles and drink. That'd be for the forager water bees. And also try and get other insects into your garden. Like if you have a little pile, just let it grow wild. A little area, let it grow wild. You could put a little log pile in there and attract stag beetles and just get a whole ecosystem going. Maybe put a little pond in, get some dragonflies in and stuff. And then the pond plants also attract the bees as well. So just trying to just go as natural as you can with lots of local plant life, no chemicals.
Good advice. So if people actually want to go a step further and start beekeeping themselves, where do you start by doing that, and how much training do you really need, do you think?
I looked online at loads of videos and lots of people doing it and how they do it. And then I just booked a course of my local association, and I went on a course with them. You don't have to, but it does help build confidence, and it helps you make connections with people. Because some of these people have been doing it like 30, 40 years. So they've got a lot of good advice they can share to you, and you can learn from them.
What's the most fascinating fact that you've learnt about bees in your time with them?
I'm glad you said that, 'cause I thought I wrote one down because when I first learned this, I was amazed. So if a colony doesn't have a queen for a long, long time, one worker bee decides that she's going to lay eggs. Now, she won't lay eggs one in each cell. She'll lay them all over the place. So it's constantly laying eggs. She lays unfertile eggs, but they still hatch and they still grow into drone bees. It's crazy, they lay unfertilized eggs, but they become fertile drone bees. They're not like really strong, good fertile drone bees, like if a queen laid a drone bee egg, but they're still fertile to mate with a queen. So I find that amazing. Unfertilized egg to a fertile drone bee.
Needs must. That's extraordinary. So, doing this, do you get stung a lot?
I don't now, but when I first started a year ago, I helped an old guy on the apiary, and he had a colony which was super aggressive, and I wore cotton gloves. Now I wear marigolds because bees don't like the texture of marigolds, and they're cheap as well. But the cotton gloves, there's a cotton bit here, sort of up to there, and the bees, when you open the hive, they didn't like me at all, and they stung my entire hand. They went up my trousers, stung my legs. It was a very weird experience, very painful, but it did something to me because I have trigger finger, and then I had to prise it open because it used to just seize up every morning. But then when I got stung here by the bees, this swelled up like a big sausage, massive. And ever since, I've never had trigger finger. So the bee sting definitely did something to my hands.
Do you know, I've heard something about that. I'm going to have to do some research. So, when you said they were angry with you, do you think they were potentially even trying to help you?
Yes, I honestly think that, yeah, because the bees know you're the beekeeper, you're looking after them. Okay, you do take their honey. I just want to say I never take the whole lot of bees' honey. I always leave a super of honey on over the winter so I don't have to feed them, they can feed themselves. I take the excess honey. But we do look after them, we treat them for varroa mite, we protect them against threats like Asian hornet or the common wasp. So they definitely know that we're there to help. And the only way they can help, I guess, is by stinging you. And they stung me. It was mainly on that finger, and absolutely fine ever since. So they definitely know something, which is pretty cool.
Right. So, can you tell people where to find you, both online and sort of in real life? I know you've got some events coming up this summer. Tell us everything.
Right, so you can find me on the web at www.beekeeping4hope.org. You can find us on Instagram, same tag, just with the @ symbol, Beekeeping for Hope. TikTok as well, YouTube. I spend most of my time on Instagram, as you know. So that's where to find me. You can contact me on there if you want to help in any way or come down for a bee experience. I'm also at a show in Portsmouth on the 26th, 27th of July, and it's called Hive. And
Yes. What a name.
and they've got myself as Beekeeping for Hope. I'll be there with my stand, and I'll be raising money for 2 beehives for a cause again. So I get the honey off, and they can go to help people in need of help. So you can also find me as well on GoFundMe. There's links on my page with a little QR code, and if you want to help support us in any way you want, then we're always after equipment. It's expensive to keep bees. As a charity, I don't get enough to help with the bees, so I fund a lot of it myself, which I don't mind doing. I love doing it anyway. But everything helps, and everything I do for the bees will eventually go to help anyone who needs it. Do you know what I mean? Locally or around the world.
That's a very noble thing. And we will, of course, put all these links on your bio page on flockandhive.com. James, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like I've learned an awful lot.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm sorry, but emotional roller coaster.
I know, it's quite brutal, isn't it? Who knew? I thought they were little gentle things. My overall impression was that they are just amazing. And I had no idea about the hierarchy and how that works. Crikey.
I mean, it's very Game of Thrones, isn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, if you don't like the queen, get her out. Cersei, the naked walk of shame. Yeah, just know your place. And, the second you're born, get out your cell because you've got a new one coming in. Thank you very much.
I suppose so. Yeah, it is. They don't take any shit, do they? The bees.
And of course, the worker bees are the girls.
Oh, obviously. But just, I still can't quite understand how humans catch a swarm of bees without the hell freaking out. Did you ever see that film when we were younger? I mean, it came out in 1978. It was called The Swarm. It was an American horror film about killer bees swarming and invading Texas. No?
No.
No.
But it's one of those things, isn't it, that you see something like that in your childhood and you just make the association that all these things are evils. It's like arachnophobia. That film we saw over and over again, didn't we?
Yeah, although to be fair, I don't think I needed that film to give me arachnophobia. I've never been a fan.
But
So,
why? Why do we demonize these insects? I really try and tell my kids, like, why is it scary? They're a vital part of our ecosystem in every way, even if they do look a bit crawly.
Do you know, I once had a babysitter for our kids who said something brilliant that has always stayed with me and really, really helped. And when she was talking to our kids when they were little, the girls, about spiders, and they said that they were afraid. And she said, "Do you know that all spiders are called William? And how you can be afraid of a little spider called William?" So random and so sweet, but it sort of works.
Willy the spider. That is a really good idea. I'm gonna use that. Just you personify them basically.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You know, our brother, when we had a spider in the kitchen, yeah, our big brother, he stood on a chair and made you, aged what, 6, hoover it up. Do you
Oh,
remember?
yeah.
Always terrified of spiders, but now he lives in Australia. He finds huntsmen really cute.
There's therapy for you. It's exposure therapy. That just says it all.
Yeah,
Speaking
sure.
of exposure therapy, though, the bee sting therapy is quite terrifyingly fascinating.
Yeah. I love that he just sort of threw it in. And I did a bit of research afterwards, actually. So it's a well known thing called apitherapy, and it's been used for thousands and thousands of years in Egypt and China and Greece and stuff. Yeah. And it's because the venom of the bee contains lots of things like apamine and adapalene, well, basically anti-inflammatory and analgesic stuff. But the sad thing is, it involves putting bees on the skin, live bees on the skin, and getting them to sting you. And it has an amazing effect for things like arthritis, MS, chronic pain, and it's really good for your immune system. But it does kill the bees.
Oh, shit. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because a bee can only sting once, unless it's the queen.
Yeah. We've just got that Sophie's Choice dilemma, really.
Well, you have. So I did see if there's a way that you could do it without killing a bee. And you can, although I still don't know how you would do it because it's basically milking a bee. How do you milk a bee? Right? Yeah, so I don't know. So I was happy to hear that because I really thought the bee had sort of sensed that his hand needed that help.
Yeah. And then, like, a bit like kamikaze bees. Like, he needs it more than us.
Well, happy. I mean, nice chemical. What's an angel kamikaze bee? They what's that?
Yeah. No, not the killing myself to kill you, killing myself to help you.
Oh my God, sacrificial bees.
Mm. Well, we know that other things bees produce that don't kill them are also really beneficial to our health. You know, I'm the biggest evangelist for Manuka honey. Our mother sniffs at me because it's just expensive and it doesn't do anything. But I swear by it. I absolutely sure it cut my COVID symptoms by 50% and shortened me suffering for it. Just having it in tea, I love it. Plus, a friend of
Mm.
mine went to A&E with some severe hot water boiling burns all down her arm, like 50% of her forearm, like really bad burns. And do you know what they did? They slathered some Manuka honey on it and left it for a few hours because that's a natural barrier and an antibacterial.
In A&E?
So, yeah, the NHS in this country use Manuka honey for burns.
Wow.
Mm.
And how often do you have it daily as like just to sort of keep you, say, I don't know, healthy, or is it just occasionally?
I'd like to have it daily, but it is £1,000,000. So no, if I'm getting the sniffles or feeling under the weather a bit, I just
Mm.
have it, yeah, in my tea. It's as like a sweetener, but definitely feel like, if I've been running a bit too much and because 'cause I'm getting old and my knees are achy, I'll have it with some turmeric then in like a tincture and definitely feel like it reduces that inflammation.
No, that's good. I think it's always good to have a pot of it around. Although, as you say, it's super pricey. Tastes like fudge.
Well, yeah, it's gorge. One thing he doesn't really go into, which is going back to the real basics of why we need to save the bees, like why are we protecting them?
No, no, he doesn't. And actually, I was hoping he would, but that is something I suppose we could pick up on another time in case there's anything that we don't know. But I guess what we do know really broadly is that our natural food comes from things that generally have to be pollinated, and we need the pollinators to be able to do that. And that is bees, these very hardworking bees.
At school, like, wouldn't sod Latin, can I please learn what a mortgage is and how to manage my finances? And can I learn about things that are really important, like things that will save the future of the human race?
I mean, it's a good point. Why aren't there sustainability classes? Maybe there are in some schools. And I must say, actually, my daughter Ivy, she does a beekeeping club once a week. I didn't even know she'd signed up for it at lunchtime. It's really sweet.
So is she now properly invested in saving the bees and not afraid of them?
She's not afraid of them amazingly, even though she did get stung on her first day, but she was very good about it.
People are scared. Still now, I see people terrified. And at worst, unless you're allergic and have anaphylaxis, I totally understand. But at worst, like, what is that real fear of a bee? Like, I think maybe it has been instilled in us, like back in the day.
Oh, I don't know. With me, it's you're never quite sure if it isn't a wasp. In fact, that kind of that is a really ominous. The buzz is really ominous, isn't it? I mean, that noise. Even when I hum to myself, because apparently it's good for your vagus nerve, I scare myself sometimes because I'm making a noise and I'm looking around thinking, is there something big and buzzy that's going to come?
So when you're chanting during your meditation, you manage to scare yourself even though you know it's you.
Yeah, that does sound a bit weird, but we've got a very small sauna, and because it's got a fan that has a hum. But yeah, even there, even in an enclosed space, I have to keep my eyes open because I'd scare myself.
So that's totally counterintuitive to why you go to meditate in the first place.
Yeah, that's true, actually. But it's because of the bastard wasps, isn't it? That's why. Yeah, because I think the fear of bees is really. I'm not afraid of bees, but I really don't like wasps, especially as I did get one up the trouser leg at a party and had to take them off. Luckily, I managed to get to the kitchen because I was just there in a little thong, and it stung me all up my all up my leg and so much on my arse, and I was in so much pain.
You just wanted to get your trousers off at a party, you slag.
There's nothing like having a wasp up your trouser leg. It's really, really horrible.
Isn't the sting the same? Doesn't it feel the same? Is a wasp sting more aggressive? Like painful?
Wasps can sting you more than once.
Right. Oh.
One wasp and it got me everywhere. But, talking about sting therapy, I wonder if it's the same with wasps. Does that mean I now have superpowers?
Well, there's that weird thing, isn't there, that if you're allergic to a sting, you only find out in the second sting. Because I remember when my son first got stung by a bee, and I remember saying, "Oh, well, at least we know you're not allergic now." And it's like, no, apparently, it's if you're ever going to react, it will be the second time. Apparently, that's the thing.
To be honest, even wasps and fear of wasps now pales in comparison when you consider Asian bastard hornets. Have you seen those things?
I am actively doing an avoidant pretending that isn't a thing because that is really terrifying.
Yeah, just the fact that it waits them out. It's evil. It's like it's proper. That's not Game of Thrones. That's kind of Hunger Games, isn't it?
It is that is brutal. My husband thinks he saw one in the loft the other day, but then he can be a bit over the top about these things. But I didn't realize you had to actually declare it if you see one.
No, you definitely do. And I think we really need to raise awareness of this. So there will be an article about how to spot an Asian hornet on Flock and Hive as well. Yeah, I think I now know what they look like because I spent all last summer sending pictures and going, is this one? It's like, no, that's a horsefly. Is this one? Thing is, they're coming.
What's interesting is that, like, we are now tasked with having to save the bees to protect our ecosystems, but something equally as natural as bees has come along to threaten that too. Are human beings in that chain? Like, is it a climate change thing, the Asian hornets coming over? Or is it just the world eating itself and we're all doomed?
Oh, very good point. Why is the world allowing an Asian hornet to happen?
One day they will rule the world.
But they look so evil. It's the fact that they're black and red, like some sort of Darth Vader-esque.
A flying dart like Darth Vader.
I mean, what I worry about is if I see one, And if I accidentally catch it, you're not allowed to let it go. But just like it's so big, it would probably move in. I don't know how you deal with one.
Yeah, we need to definitely get some advice out there.
Yes, I think something on bee sting therapy and how to have that without killing a bee, milking a bee, but also Asian hornets.
Do bees have boobs? Boobies? I genuinely, I genuinely only thought of the boobies in the middle of that sentence, and it wasn't like some kind of knock knock joke. Do bees have boobs?
Do you know what? I didn't ask him that. Oh, you mean about the milking? No, it's about milking the venom from their venom sacs, not their breasts.
And there is something, a joke about boobies and bees.
What is the boobies joke? What kind of bees do you play
Give
with?
you
No.
milk. Yes, that's the joke. What kind of bees give you milk? Boobies.
Boobies!
Yes.
That's a good joke. That's
Can we all just stand up and applaud Hive Aid?
I really hope their band's playing. I think there are.
Is Bob Geldof doing a very impassioned speech at the beginning?
He should be. But do you know what? David Beckham has his own bees. Did you know this? And I know this because I have just written an article on mead, which is honey wine, which we'll talk about in a minute. But he got in touch with the producer that I know to say, look, I really love what you're doing. This is my David Beckham impression. I love what you're doing with the bees. Maybe you can take some of my honey and we could do a collaboration. And obviously they're like, okay. That was Gosnells and Beckham.
If you were like impassioned and it was your life's work to get to Beckham, the last thing on my list that I'd even considered would be an avenue to him would be bees. That's so cute though. I do love David Beckham. I follow him on Instagram, and all his things that he gets into, his hobbies, he is transitioning so wonderfully from like a 90s football heartthrob and just chilling out now whilst Victoria's killing it in her industry. And he's just pottering and I love it.
Now he's moving into honey, and yeah, I'll be watching what he does with mead, which is a drink that I think you'd like, by the way.
But won't it be, isn't that really gluteny?
No, it's pure honey. It's just fermented honey and water. That's all it is. And it's the oldest drink in the planet. So it's like what people used to famously drink in medieval times. You can still get really dodgy versions of it in the gift shop at all National Trust properties.
Doesn't it get you really fucked up?
It's like 4% a lot of the time, but it also makes a really good non-alcoholic drink too, or something up to around 12-13%, which is a brilliant wine alternative and just a bit more kind of natural and just another option. Yeah, so back to Hive Aid. So James is doing a lot of stuff.
His charity's a gorgeous thing, isn't it?
It is, and so varied, like Moldova and Ukraine. Just yes, it's such a wonderful small thing to make a difference. Like he's bothering to make a difference, and I love that.
And the fact that he has a charity per colony is really cute as well.
Yeah. So obviously we'll be putting all James Wheeldon's details on flockandhive.com as well. So don't forget to look out for that. But that feels like a good place to wrap up today, doesn't it?
It does.
And please don't forget to subscribe to our lovely new newsletter. It's a good roundup of what's been going on the website and the podcast, as well as little extras that are going to pop up every now and then, such as giveaways and just extra little treats in general.
But until next week, goodbye.
Bye-bye.